You are watching WOC Concrete Talks.
Hello and welcome to the WOC Concrete Talks, a thought leadership series and interactions with leaders and influencers in the construction and concrete industry. We have with us our special guest for today, Mr. Anand, founder and CEO, Global Wealth Group India and India Director, Business Doctors UK. Ish has more than 28 years experience in private equity, hospitality, real estate, and consulting across industries in diverse national and international geographies. He's a regular speaker at conferences, both India and international, on a wide range of topics. A warm welcome to Ish and a pleasure to have you with us today for the WOC Conference Talks.
Thank you very much, Padma. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and to be invited by the Informa Markets team. World of Concrete has been something that is a global leader in what it does. So it's always a pleasure and thank you.
Thank you. To begin with, tell us about your fascination and attraction towards the construction industry and the landscape as you see today.
Very interesting. So, I've been involved in projects from the time I started my education. I studied in Europe. I was involved in hotel projects, commissioning new projects, restoring old heritage hotels when I was in college itself. Post the college piece, I moved to Africa and to various parts of Europe, where I was once again involved in hotel projects, seeing something from groundbreaking upwards to completion, and also ensuring that the first guests walked in happily. That was something that gave me immense satisfaction. Coming back to India many years ago, I was involved in one of the most amazing and a landmark resort project in the country, the Leela Beach, Goa. I was involved in commissioning that project from start to finish and to seeing the first guests come into the asset. In addition to that, I did several other hotel projects before I moved out into the real estate business. And my first landmark project in the real estate business was something which is still considered to be one of India's finest, is the International Technology Park at Whitefield in Bangalore. I was involved in seeing that project through right from groundbreaking to actually seeing the first customers move into the asset. It was an amazing experience because what we created was absolutely world class. What we created was something from ground upwards, ground breaking upwards, actually, I must specify, to completion and seeing the first guests or the first customers move into the asset in 18 months flat. And that was considered to be a record of some sorts at that time. But working with the Singapore consortium, it was always an experience and something that you learn from world leaders in the construction space. And that's what gave me an impetus to move further. I did several projects across the country, ended up moving to Bombay and in Mumbai, what it's called now, it was called Bombay at that time. In Mumbai, what it's called now, I'm sure we all know about Lower Parel, which is considered to be one of the commercial hubs of the city. In Mumbai, I saw the transformation of the mill lands into what you see today. Bustling hubs of commercial activity and office activity. So I was involved in one of the most landmark projects there with the India Bulls Group, seeing all their commercial as well as residential assets come up in that area. Not only that, we did several other very interesting projects across the country. In addition to that, I've done several other projects in different geographies around the world. I advise on some projects, I get involved in a few. We also now look at funding and financing some projects. In addition to what I've done in the real estate private equity space, where I've raised several funds to actually see assets come up from ground upwards to completion. So that's my background. It's my fascination with the business. I continue to be associated with it. And I see a tremendous landscape and opportunity in India now. There is hunger. The government, more importantly, is giving this industry tremendous impetus, both on the real estate side and on the infrastructure side. So you've got the real estate assets and you've got the urban infrastructure assets. Both these assets are gaining tremendous importance from a government perspective. And I think that's what is a very, very bright spark for this industry and people who are involved in this industry. There's a huge opportunity. India is also seeing international markets open up, both from an investment perspective, as well as from a perspective where Indian companies are going overseas now to make projects, to build projects. That was never the case earlier. We were always looking for, expertise to come from overseas and help us. Now it's also the other way around. And I think that is the most important and the brightest spark that I see for Indian businesses and an opportunity that I see for Indian businesses. So like certain other geographies grew very, very rapidly by taking their construction prowess overseas, we have that opportunity also. And there are several Indian companies, I don't want to take any names, but several Indian companies who are world class and they're second to none. So we stand tremendous opportunity from a foreign exchange perspective, from a revenue perspective, from building world-class companies, building world-class infrastructure, getting new technologies into the country, getting new practices into the country, getting new design into the country, getting equipment into the country. So all those opportunities lie. And not only that, construction industry is considered to be very, very labor intensive. And it's a huge opportunity for our workforce, for our manpower to be gainfully employed. So that's how I see the landscape panning out. And if both government as well as industry work together, there is no reason for us not to be very optimistic about this business.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Going from this, I'd like to know what are your key takeaways from the budget this year on the infrastructure and housing side?
Excellent, excellent. I think that's a tremendous piece. See, I think the budget has been very, very favorable to this business this year. There are several takeaways that I would touch on. But first, I just want to give you a little flavor of what the construction industry or the real estate business can do for us as an economy. The FDI in the sector stood at 24.72 billion last year. Yeah, and that's a huge number. The likelihood of India being the third largest construction market in the world by 2025 is very high if we go at the same pace. So that's another huge opportunity. Year on year growth is about 7.1%, which means this could be a $1 trillion business in years to come, let's say by around 2030. And that's a huge number for us to really look at. Construction equipment, for example, today is a $6.5 billion business in this country. So what you're really looking at is a huge opportunity, both in terms of numbers, in terms of investment coming in for our potential to earn foreign exchange from overseas markets, as well as other job opportunities that are created because of the construction industry. What you must keep in mind is the construction industry is not just about going and building something or doing some infrastructure. It's about the entire ecosystem that is created around the construction industry. When you're going into the construction industry, it's like an auto ancillary unit where you have somebody assembling the car, but at the same time you have several units around that factory creating various parts of that entire car. So similarly, in the construction business, you will have several units around a construction project, making sure there is gainful employment and products and services coming into that project. That's the huge opportunity. So let's not just look at the construction industry per se. Let's look at what also happens in and around. There's cement, there's steel, there's wires, there is furniture, there is fixtures, there is 101 other things that are needed in a construction project. And that's what I believe is a huge, huge opportunity for all of us. What it's also important to note is that the construction industry already brings in the second highest FDI into the economy. Now, the second highest FDI into the economy is a huge number. So I think we need to keep, that also in mind. A little research that I did was there are 250 subsectors in the construction business that gainfully employ and earn revenue for the business. Now, that's a huge number. I think it's something that we must keep in mind when we look at overall budgets or we look at various others pieces that go with the industry. Also, the construction industry contributes about 13% to the GDP of the country. So that's again a huge number. In the budget, there's a huge impetus on smart cities, industrial corridors, railways, ports, and commercial spaces. Now, that in itself is a number that is staggering. If I were to go into specifics, just very, very briefly, there are e-ways that have been pushed out in the budget, which are almost 25,000 kilometers of expansion alone, in addition to what is already there. There is also the likelihood of ensuring that once these e-ways come, there are industries and infrastructure that develops around it. So there's more FDI coming in. There are metros and cargo terminals that have been declared. There is a huge focus on development of the Northeast, which will also include construction. There are 80 lakh homes under the PM Awas Yojana, which have also been declared. Now that in itself is a huge number. It's a staggering number. Also look at some of the infrastructure side of things. The Ken-Betwa River project has got a huge amount that has been allocated to it. Other housing projects worth almost 48,000 crores have also been declared. Now, again, very, very significant. With all this, there is the demand for steel and cement and various other pieces. Last but not the least, I think there has been a huge focus on eco and sustainable development. Now, that in itself brings in huge opportunities for industry, for us to have new technology, for us to be able to build more sustainable futures. I think that's what this budget has done. It's opened up opportunities. It's for us as industry to go ahead and make use of it. So the planners, the thinkers, the corporate gurus, the honchos, the financiers, they all need to sit down together and they need to see how we can make use of it.
True. I mean, it's a true propeller for various businesses.
Absolutely.
The World of Concrete is looking at a virtual expo and conference in April, on April 26th and 27th of 2022. And we are looking to focus on industry's adoption of innovative technologies, products, equipments, and materials. I would like your take on why and how this is important for the industry.
I think, after the pandemic, especially during the pandemic, people kind of, went into their shells. They stopped thinking. Many people thought a lot and certain businesses flowered. So for example, the digital ecosystem grew tremendously during the pandemic. However, the construction business took a hit, but the construction business is one of those which is seeing the most amazing rebound right now. Real estate sales have picked up, infrastructure development has picked up, everything has happened. So what are the opportunities and what can the World of Concrete do? So World of Concrete, I think, is extremely well positioned within the industry with its track record and having done a number of, industry path-breaking think tanks, sessions, events, etc. I think, very, very well positioned in looking at some of these things that I'll just list down for you. So I think, anybody will agree and say there's an opportunity to create jobs. And construction and concrete and buildings are major facilitators for that. So I think job creation can be something that the world of concrete can talk about. World of Concrete can look at new technologies, fresh projects. The world of concrete can also look at safety as an issue within the industry. Can also look at new business models. So the world is innovating, new business models are coming up. Uh, People always spoke about shortage of financing. Uh, One of the areas that we operate in is fractional investments, and fractional investments are a huge major source of financing of projects across the world now. And India in itself is becoming a major hub for that. Uh, World of Concrete can also look at how we can improve our cross-border opportunities. So do we have opportunities for Indian companies to go global? How do we do that? How do we improve the FDI coming into the country? Yeah. How do we look at make in India becoming a huge thing, where whether it's construction equipment or it is materials, say for example, cement and concrete and various other things that go along with that. How do we make sure that we also get those out into overseas markets? Uh, and in addition, I think innovation is something that the world of concrete can definitely drive. Innovation is important in any industry. We see several landmarks being created across the world, both in terms of design and in terms of material, in terms of time taken to construct. I always believed that time taken to construct in India is never under control. Can the world of concrete actually look at that as driving a major agenda in that area? Because the lesser time it takes to construct, the lesser time it takes to get the project off the ground and into the customer's hands, the better the financial status of that project is, the better you see the results. I think those are some of the things that the world of concrete can definitely drive.
And the sustainability part, of course.
Absolutely. Sustainability goes beyond doubt.
Yeah. Manpower is the backbone of any industry. So, what do you think are the skills required in the construction industry, both at the helm and down the line?
Excellent. So I think once again, I'll go back, to one basic concept. India is a large country. There is a considerable amount of unemployment, and there's a huge amount of unskilled labor available everywhere. We have a lot of artisans that come under the unskilled category, or how do we look at turning them into skilled artisans? How do we look at turning them into actual business people who know how to make money for themselves? Today, artisans tend to uh, uh, do great work, but they never seem to make money. They're always below that poverty line. Yeah. Can we address that topic? Is something that we can do by way of imparting some skills to them. It could be even business skills, not necessarily technical skills. It could also be business skills. Can we teach them to be better businessmen? Can we train our unskilled workers to adopt better safety practices, to adopt better methodology to look after themselves and to actually be able to become more productive on the workforce? So can we do that? Can we look at educating them in various practices within the industry? So can we look at bringing the unskilled workforce and turning them into skilled artisans or skilled industry professionals of the future? Can we give them education like they do in ITIs? Can we do that? So the Sector Skills Council, the NSDC, has done some good work in that. How do we adopt some of those practices and how do we take them across the industry? I know a lot of companies run private initiatives where they're trying to train the workforce that is unskilled right now and help them move up the curve. But how can we make this a mass movement? Because not everybody in the industry in India comes under that large business category. Many of them are small and medium businesses, small builders who don't have that wherewithal or that infrastructure, or maybe not even that drive. Can we drive? Can we push some regulations? Can we do some compliance? Can we do some auditing that will push them in the direction of making sure that skilling becomes a major part? Can we also look at how we can drive automation through skilling on a larger scale? Can we also look at how we can train our businessmen, small and medium entrepreneurs who are in the construction sector, to be better leaders and to be better businessmen? How do we make them more effective in running their own businesses? How do we skill our own small and medium enterprises? And I'm focusing more on small and medium enterprises because large businesses are already doing it to some extent. And small and medium enterprises play a very large role in our economy, and they are like an engine of growth within the economy. If that engine is well oiled, everything else will also be well oiled. So how can we push our small and medium enterprises to take some of their expertise to markets outside the country, to go to areas which have never been explored before? Yeah. How do we push our entire skill of entrepreneurship? Indians are considered to be best when they are entrepreneurs. We have several success stories across the world, and some of them also in the construction space. How can we do more of those? So I think those are some of the skills that I believe that we can impart. In addition to that, even at the college level, so students, if they are given a greater focus, and the industry is spoken about more often, and more learning opportunities are given to students within the industry, I think you will have a far, far more skilled and superior workforce that you will be able to make use of. There are new technologies coming. There's 3D printing, there is BIM, there is, several initiatives that one can keep talking about. But I think the bulk of our country is in the unskilled space. And I think if we focus there, then the rest of the pyramid will always become better. That's my take on from the skilling perspective.
Do you think the larger corporates have an onus and they need to come forward and come up with more initiatives?
Absolutely. I think the larger organizations always have that onus, and they must give impetus to bringing up the standard of the entire business. Because if they don't do that, then their own input, because they also outsource work to smaller businesses. Yeah, their own input will not be of a standard or a quality that is international in nature. And as we grow as a nation, as we grow as a business in this country, as we say we want to globalize this business from an Indian perspective, we need to ensure that that input that even large corporates get into their own system is of a much higher standard. So yes, a large amount of the onus lies with the large corporates, the more organized players, but also the government is an equal stakeholder in this. And I think without the government's support, without the government's push, impetus, incentive, nothing will happen.
Yeah, so there has to be a tie-up between the government and the large corporates, some kind
You
of.
have to work. You have to work hand in hand. If you don't work hand in hand between government and industry, it will never happen.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. So my last question to you is, what is your message to industry professionals, particularly with regard to project management, better project management?
Okay, good. I think that's a very important piece, because that's where a lot of the problems actually happen, and we tend to hide behind those. So one of the first things that I would talk about, and my message to the project management community would be, don't take shortcuts. Yeah, and it's when you take shortcuts that compromises happen. It's when you're on a site, or when you're supervising, or when you're taking measurements, or you're checking material or whatever. Do not compromise and do not take shortcuts. Because if you don't set the benchmarks there, then the rest of it is only downstream. You know, you're only going to suffer. So
It has a cascading effect.
yeah, it has a cascading effect. So at the end of the day, if one piece in the entire picture goes wrong, then you are going to have problems at other places. So
Yeah.
I think that would be a key takeaway from me. The other thing that I would say is design to international standards. It's your feedback. It's project management companies' feedbacks. It is because they are there on the ground. They are looking at what happens. An architect sits inside a studio. He looks at measurements, numbers, figures, FSIs, costs, etc., etc. But I think what you learn practically on the ground and the feedback that you give to the authorities, to the architects, to design professionals, etc., that's extremely important. And that's what is going to bring in better design practice. So I think PMC plays a very large role even in that area, that the communication between the PMC and the principals, that is the design professionals and various other financial professionals that work on a project. I think that needs to be very, very strong and very clear. Third thing, look at very, very strong planning capability. Don't just do shortcuts. Don't just do ad hoc stuff. Look at very strong planning capability. And all that cascades down to having better manpower and various other things. Then look at your entire end user in mind. Don't just design for the sake of FSIs, or don't just project management for the sake of FSIs. At the end of the day, this entire building or this entire project or this entire infrastructure has end users. You've got to keep them in mind. And as a project management professional, you need to study that and once again give your inputs and design into the design professionals, the planning professionals, the financing professionals, etc. So those are very important. Quality of materials is very, very important. I think you need to ensure that there is no compromise on that. And you've got to ensure that the end product is to the highest international standards. We need to be, if we are to improve our quality of living, our cities, our infrastructure, I think the project management professional plays a very strong and part in that. At the end of the day, I mean, if you look at some of the flyovers that have been built, the designs are fantastic. There's no question about it. But the project management that has gone into it is so poor that 3 months from the time the flyover has been built, it's ready to go for another round of repairs. I mean, what kind of project management is that? I don't understand it. I'm sorry. Yeah. Look at countries in certain parts of the world, I won't take any names, where the roads don't need any repair work for the next 15 years. Why? They've been built to such a standard that you don't need repairs. You just don't need repairs. Those roads are never shut down. They don't have traffic jams. Why do we have traffic jams? Because if you travel down a road in a Mumbai or a Delhi or a Bangalore or a Chennai, half the problem is because half the roads are under maintenance for 50% of the time. Why? Because the quality of construction that and the management that goes behind that construction is so poor that you have no option. I think that's my message to PMC companies. That's my message to project management professionals. Think international. You want to be a global player? Think international, not just in terms of going international, but also in terms of standards that are followed across the world. So quality standards need to be, we have quality standards. It's not that we don't have quality standards. Those are not implemented or shortcuts are found around it. Let's not get into that. That's my message.
That's wonderful. Great. Thank you very much, Ish, for those great takeaways. I'm sure our industry professionals will enjoy this episode. Thank you very much. See you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Padma. It's been a pleasure.